You know, these days I've become pretty desensitized to the idea that new Star Wars shows are probably gonna suck. It's just the natural state of affairs now, so solidly reliable and self-evident that it'd be like questioning whether the sun will rise in the morning, water will flow downhill, or Amy Schumer's new comedy routine will be about as funny as a cancer diagnosis. But this one was different, because as much as Disney has methodically humiliated and destroyed beloved characters like Han, Luke, Leia, Lando and Boba Fett, there was one that stood tall amongst all this nihilistic postmodernist garbage. One final bastion of good characterization and heroic idealism that remained undefeated. One remaining link to the Star Wars of George Lucas before the fucking cartoon rodent got hold of it. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wise mentor, the compassionate Jedi, the skilled warrior, the seasoned adventurer, the bumbling, incompetent old man that gets bossed around by a 10-year-old girl.
Father, aren't you going to say hello?
Hello.
Fuck. I suppose it was always gonna happen, wasn't it? I mean, eventually they were gonna find him.
We will find you!
Shut up, Reva. We'll get to you soon enough. Believe that. Anyway, to properly explain how bad this show is, let's have ourselves a good old-fashioned plot summary. So Kenobi picks up about a decade after the events of Revenge of the Sith. Kenobi himself is now living in exile on Tatooine, living a simple, anonymous life, while covertly keeping an eye on Luke to make sure the boy's safe. Nice one, Ben. Sure hope you don't totally abandon this task at the very first episodes.
She needs you, Obi-Wan.
I can't leave the boy.
This isn't about the boy and you know it.
Oh, for fuck's sake. So the object of Ben's mission is Leia Organa, a 10-year-old girl who looks like a 7-year-old and runs like a 3-year-old. She gets kidnapped from Alderaan by the world's most incompetent criminals, because, you know, why would the daughter of a planetary governor need a security detail, or a tracking device, or any kind of remote monitoring? Just let the kids run off into the woods, Bail, I'm sure it'll be fine. And because Kenobi is apparently the only person in the entire galaxy that can take on a job like this, he abandons Luke and heads off to rescue her. So he manages to track down Leia and rescue her from the world's most incompetent kidnappers, but it turns out that it was all a trap to lure him in, you see. This is Reva, a strong, diverse female character who's now working for the Inquisitors to hunt down escaped Jedi across the galaxy, and she wants Kenobi real bad. Like she'll literally torture and kill anyone who gets in her way, even the fucking Grand Inquisitor himself. So they escape and head to another planet on the vague promise that there might be someone there who can help them. Well, I'm convinced. But wouldn't you know it, there isn't. So naturally Kenobi's got no idea of what to do next, and so Leia takes charge. Because 10-year-old girls who look 7 and run like 3-year-olds are absolutely the kind of people that you want to listen to when you're being hunted by the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and the Inquisitors, and fucking Darth Vader. Naturally Leia walks them straight into a bunch of stormtroopers, and Kenobi loses his mind and forgets that they're supposed to be undercover, and they almost get captured. But it's okay though, because strong female not resistance leader shows up to save their arses. Get used to this kind of situation, by the way, because it's a running theme with this character. Anyway, they're about to escape off-world again, but wouldn't you know it, Darth Vader shows up and kicks Kenobi's arse in what has to be the most poorly staged lightsaber battle in the entire franchise, and then sets him on fire, just like he got set on fire.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
But luckily, strong female not resistance leader shows up in the nick of time to rescue him. Wow, it's almost like the writers are using her as a convenient fix to get Kenobi out of any situation that they dump him into. But oh no, Reva teleports in and conveniently captures Leia. How exactly did she know where and when to find her? Don't know. So the upshot is that Leia's been kidnapped again, and it's up to Kenobi to rescue her. Again. Why do I feel like this entire show is the narrative equivalent of a car spinning its wheels in the muds? Anyway, so Kenobi and strong female not resistance leader infiltrate Reva's headquarters with absolutely zero difficulty, rescue Leia and make their way out. And it's at this point that we all bore witness to a scene that will live in infamy amongst the Star Wars fanbase. Nope, nothing to see here, just a monstrously deformed hobo with 2 sets of legs wearing a trench coat that's several sizes too big. Don't challenge him or report this to your superiors, guys. Just carry on with your day like nothing's happening. You know, she's pretty small. You could probably have put her inside a droid, or a cargo container, or a fucking duffel bag, and it would have looked a lot more natural than this shit. When did the Empire go from being a terrifying, intimidating force to a bunch of absolute fucking jokers? So anyway, the Not Resistance rescue Leia with a bunch of snow speeders because nostalgia, and take her back to their Not Resistance base. Well, after having a protracted mourning sequence for Wade, a speeder pilot that's on screen for all of 10 seconds before he got killed that I guess we're supposed to care about. But oh no, Reva put a tracking device on her. Shame that her fucking dad never thought to do that. And before you know it, their base is under siege, which forces Kenobi to surrender to Reva to buy enough time for them to escape. Because, you know, all they have to do is get their unarmed transports out of the hangar and they're home free. That massive Star Destroyer in orbit is just gonna let them go. But anyway, it turns out that Reva's not actually after Kenobi after all. Okay, so this is where I'm gonna have to go off on a bit of a tangent, because trying to rationalise this fucking character and a ridiculous plan may have given me actual brain damage. So the gist is that Reva was a youngling during Order 66, in case you didn't figure that out from the opening prologue already, and she got stabbed through the fucking chest by Anakin's lightsaber, but naturally she survived so that the rest of the plot could happen. Clearly a spot of revenge was in order, so in order to get close to him, she joined the Inquisitors and worked her way up through the ranks by hunting and killing escaped Jedi over the course of an entire decades. You know, the same people that she wanted to take revenge for, because that's how morality works in the real world, don't you know? But then she somehow discovered a link between Bail Organa and Kenobi. How exactly did she discover this?
I found a link between him and Organa in the archives.
Oh, the archives, eh? Those archives which are accessible to all of the Inquisitors and Darth Vader himself? Lucky that you happen to be the only one to find that connection, isn't it? Because otherwise the rest of the plot never could have happened. So okay, she kidnaps Leia to force Kenobi out of hiding because she somehow knows that Bail would only choose him out of the thousands of other people that he's got access to. Then she kidnapped Leia again and allowed Kenobi to rescue her so that she could put a tracking device on her that would lead them back to the Not Resistance base that would allow her to get close to Vader and then totally fuck up her one chance to kill him. What a genius plan. I can't see literally dozens of ways that this could have failed if everyone involved didn't behave exactly the way you needed them to. Convenience is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Anyway, wouldn't you know it, she fails to kill the character that's clearly still alive in the next movie. Who knew? Then Vader shoves his lightsaber through her chest, again, leaves her to die, again, but she miraculously survives. Again. Jesus, you'd think Vader of all people would appreciate the danger of walking away and leaving apparently defeated opponents still alive. Shit man, even the Grand Inquisitor comes back all of a sudden. Damn, people are just walking off lightsaber impalements like they're nothing now. Anyway, the stage is now set for the final confrontation. Kenobi heads to generic Dart Planet number 57 to draw Darth Vader in and give the Not Resistance time to escape from the completely incompetent Star Destroyer that's been pursuing them. Because I guess TIE fighters, long-range interceptors, or even other Star Destroyers just don't exist in this show. Meanwhile, Reva heads to Tatooine to kill Luke Skywalker. How did she know that Luke was Vader's son? Don't know. So there's a bunch of different fighting where the cinematography is so fucking dark and murky that I could barely even make out what was happening, and then Obi-Wan beats Vader again and then walks away and leaves him. See, shit like this is exactly the reason this story never should have been told in the first place. Obviously, neither combatant can actually be killed here, and since we need this line to make sense...
When I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master.
Logic dictates that Obi-Wan has got to win the fight. But why the fuck would you walk away from Darth Vader when you've got the chance to kill him and end the threat that he poses? I mean, you know he's just gonna regroup and come after you again, right? And probably a lot more innocent people are gonna die in the process. I mean, I could kind of understand why Obi-Wan left him on Mustafar. He was on fire, he had no arms or legs, and he was inside a fucking volcano. It would be pretty reasonable to assume that he wasn't gonna make it out of there. This time though, he's damaged and weakened, but still very much in the fight. It would absolutely make sense to finish him now while you've got the chance. But nope, he walks away and leaves one of the most dangerous men in the galaxy to fight another day. What's a dick? Speaking of characters acting like dicks, Reva manages to track down Luke and has him at her mercy. I love how they conveniently knock him out for this scene so that they can still pretend he's never seen or heard of a lightsaber in A New Hope. But wouldn't you know it, she has a last minute change of heart because she literally sees herself as Luke Skywalker, and that's when she realises, in trying to take revenge against Anakin, she's actually becoming him.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Fuck off, George, it's your fault that this is even happening in the first place. So Reva relents and carries Luke back to Uncle Owen's farm through miles of desert while heavily wounded, and Kenobi conveniently shows up just in time to do absolutely nothing. Then he tells her that she's a good person now because she spared one life, and that totally wipes out the dozens if not hundreds of other people she's killed over the years. I'm sure that'll be of great comfort to their families, Obi-Wan. Seriously though, one single act of compassion does not undo a lifetime of evil deeds. If Anakin had somehow survived the events of Return of the Jedi, then he would still absolutely have to answer for everything he'd done up until that point. At the very least, he would have been tried as a war criminal and spent the rest of his life in prison. He wouldn't just be allowed to go free like nothing happened. But nah, the script expects us to completely change our view of Reva because of this one decision. Why do I get the feeling the writers wouldn't have gone this easy on the character if she'd been a different demographic? I guess in their minds women just aren't responsible for their own actions, so they can't be held accountable for anything bad that they do. Oh, and by the way, for the record, I totally called this shit before the show even began.
Let's apply the formula, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So she is a strong female character who's in service of bad people. Obviously, she can't actually be evil. What we'll actually find out is that she's a good person underneath it all who's been manipulated into doing this by an evil person, an evil man. And she will redeem herself.
And so the show ends with Leia back on Alderaan, Kenobi back on Tatooine,
Hello there.
and Vader back on Mustafar, so literally everything is exactly the same as when it started. What a fucking pointless, meaningless waste of time this show was, telling a story that absolutely didn't need to be told, creating countless plot holes and inconsistencies with the original movies, and worst of all, sacrificing an awesome character in the process. Kenobi, quite simply, is an idiot. He's weak, indecisive and gullible. He fails to anticipate obvious traps and dangers, is afraid of enemies that he's already defeated, abandons his role as protector, makes terrible choices that completely ignore all logic, defers to people less knowledgeable and experienced than himself, and generally acts like a completely different person from what we've seen before and since. Instead of crafting a story that's consistent with his character, the writers altered his character to fit the story that they had in mind. It's all about them, you see. It's all about what they want to do, the story they want to tell, the things they want to do with their characters. Make no fucking mistake here, this show is very much Reva's story. She's the driving force behind the entire narrative. Her arc and her decisions are what defines the beginning, middle and end of this plot. Kenobi himself is just there to react to it. The writers wanted to tell her story, but they also knew that nobody would really care about it, and so they attached it to Kenobi like some kind of fucking parasite to suck the life out of it. They desperately wanted to build Reva up as a fascinating, tragic anti-hero shaped by a lifetime of suffering who redeems herself at the crucial moments, and in turn makes you like her. Or else. Unfortunately, neither the writers nor the actress were up to the challenge. What we got instead was a loud, aggressive, obnoxious, sadistic arsehole who takes genuine pleasure in harming innocent people and only turns aside at the 11th hour with a single act of mercy. That is not how morality works, and it's not how you write a redemption arc. Leia is equally insufferable, acting like a spoiled, precocious brat who's literally never heard the word no in her entire life. She disobeys direct orders in life or death situations with not a care in the world, constantly argues with grown-ups like they're her peers, and makes insanely stupid decisions that nobody ever calls her out on. But she's also able to infer complex motivations from tiny scraps of information that she absolutely shouldn't be able to figure out. Basically, she's as dumb or as smart as any particular scene needs her to be, with absolutely no rhyme or reason behind any of it. What's even weirder is that the ending tries to frame her as finally finding her inner strength and independence to be her own person, which would have worked great if she'd started out as some timid, downtrodden little flower, bossed around by her domineering parents, and only found her fiery side through the hardships and danger that she's endured. But it's not. She was already headstrong and rebellious from her very first scene, and she stays that way all throughout the story. And yes, I'm well aware that the Leia from A New Hope was sassy and strong-willed and independent, but that Leia was a grown-ass woman. This is a 10-year-old child. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the same person I was when I was that age. It's the simple-minded logic of an amateur writer whose thought process is basically, Leia in the movies was strong and rebellious, so the Leia in our show has to be exactly the same or nobody will understand. Here's a hint, character development has to involve actual development. And just to be clear, this is nothing whatsoever against the actress. She does a perfectly good job with what she's been given. This is an issue with the writing. Also, having a female Star Wars character show any kind of weakness or subservience, even temporarily, is clearly not possible now anyway. Literally every female in this show might as well have been forged from the same standard template. Shit man, even Aunt Beru gets in on the action when she and Owen find out that Reva's on the way to kill them all. Owen's natural response is to get the fuck out of there, which makes complete sense to me because for all he knows, the Empire might be sending an entire company of stormtroopers to wipe the place out. This is absolutely the time to cut and run. But nah, Beru goes into full fucking Rambo mode and she's like, we're going to stand and fight. It's a typical girl boss moment that the writers were probably creaming their pants over, and it appeals to the cheap emotional pull of standing your ground even if the odds are against you, but it also completely ignores the reality of their situation. You're two people with limited resources, cut off and isolated. It doesn't matter how good you are at fighting, you're not going to be able to fend off the entire Imperial military. If Owen had even a single brain cell in his head, not to mention a pair of balls, he would have straight up told her that her idiotic plan was going to get all three of them killed. But nope, he just shuts his mouth and follows her lead like a good male supporting character is supposed to. Just do anything for an easy life. This kind of thing is no different from Admiral Holdo, where the script desperately tried to frame a selfish, egotistical, petty-minded and grossly incompetent commander as a paragon of wisdom and self-sacrificing virtue. It's trying to tell you one thing but showing you something completely different, and it's so funny because the writers genuinely can't understand how badly they've fucked up. It's not just the writing that sucks either. This show has got some of the worst direction and cinematography I've seen since Book of Boba Fett. Do you like watching lightsaber fights where the contrast is turned down so low that you can barely even make out what's going on? Jesus, even Rian Johnson was smart enough to put a bit of colour into his scenes. The set pieces are laughable, clumsy and awkward. Watching Reva trying to run in her bulky armour is like watching Joe Biden trying to take on a flight of stairs. One battle scene has two armed groups shooting at each other from less than 10 yards away and consistently missing. Lightsaber fights almost always take place in flat open arenas with nothing interesting or dangerous to play against. Oh, and for the love of God, will you fuck off with the shaky cam? It's not the early 2000s and this isn't a fucking Michael Bay movie. Flashback scenes featuring Obi-Wan and Anakin make it ridiculously obvious that both actors have aged 20 years since they last did this stuff. I mean seriously, you couldn't spend a few dollars digitally removing some lines and wrinkles from Hayden Christensen? All of it has this weirdly cheap, rushed feel about it, like it had to be done as quickly and efficiently as possible so they could clear out the soundstage and make way for the next Star Wars production. I mean, I could understand something like Boba Fett being done on the cheap, because let's be honest, he's not exactly a flagship character, but this is Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader you're dealing with. If anyone deserves a decent amount of time and money, it's them. As it stands, it just feels like another generic Star Wars show, no better or more significant or more important than anything else. And it's a real shame because there are some genuinely good moments that hint at what this story could have been in better hands. Ewan McGregor is really going for it at times. He's clearly happy to be back and doing his best with what he has. Uncle Owen actually gets what I suspect was an unintentionally awesome scene where he stands his ground against Reva, knowing he's got no chance of beating her but willing to lay down his life to give Luke a chance to escape. These little moments show what Kenobi could have been if it was competently written and directed, but unfortunately I'm not here to review what could have been, I'm here to pass judgment on what it actually is. And what it is a complete waste of time and potential. A show that's in such a mad rush to build up its new characters that it trips and stumbles over its own feet, neglecting the very characters it's supposed to be focused on. A show that accomplishes nothing except to tread water, putting everything and everyone right back where they started at the beginning. A show that ultimately fails to answer the biggest question of all. Why does it even exist? Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.